Hello, 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 and welcome back to Believe, BLEAV in Lions, right here on the Believe Podcast Network. That's Detroit's #1 sports podcasting network. And this is the show where we believe in the Detroit Lions. And by the end of it, so will you. I'm your host, Jack Cavanagh at Javanaugh87, and I am joined once again by the mayor of Detroit, three-time Pro Bowler for the Lions, Mr. Jerry Ball. How you doing tonight,
Hey,
Jerry?
hey, I'm good, Jack. I'm good. I'm good. Just you still kind of reeling from this loss last night. Looking at it at the last second in that way. Other than that, I'm doing good. I can't complain.
Yeah, it was a painful one to say the least. Like you said before the show, anytime you lose in the last couple seconds, it's going to be a dagger. Lions do cover the spread though, and so if you bet on the Lions over at
Yeah,
betonline.ag with our friends, you did make some money. So hopefully you made that wise decision.
no doubt, no doubt. Definitely covered that bet.
You know what? At least we can take solace in that. They were 7-point underdogs and came this close to getting a W. So, anyways, let's kick it over to our friends over at betonline.ag, and we'll be right back after this. We are back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back on for another football season. As always, BetOnline is your #1 spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the #1 source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. And don't forget to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your bonus. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. Bet online is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. Bet online, where the game starts. And we are back. And it was a heartbreaking loss, like we talked about. Another last minute field goal. Dan Campbell in tears after the game. Says he's proud of his guys, though. He says it's tough to be 0-5. It's tough to lose like that again. But he was still proud of them. And you don't find your way back in a game like that if you don't believe. And I think that was a shout out to us. He said the Lions believe, and we believe in the Lions. And the D played well. So what are your big thoughts coming out of this one?
Well, I would tell you, one, in looking at it a number of different ways, the Lions themselves had an opportunity to truly win the game. Other than the second quarter, the Lions actually, if you looked at the scoreboard, had either tied or, maintained, I guess you would say, an even level with the Vikings, and to go all the way down, I think it was like 4 minutes and 30 seconds. They were only down by a touchdown, and by 1 minute and 38 seconds, they had taken the lead,
Mm-hmm.
in a short period of time. So that showed a lot of character in the team. I do believe that there are some things that they're going to have to tighten up, in in the secondary. I think in some of the ways that the guys were playing and stuff, and we can get into it a little later. But I think we got to tighten that part of it up. And then I didn't like the fact that I didn't see Golf really get his feet set on a lot of passes. They kind of were harassing him, and we're gonna talk about that too. So overall, I think it was a good effort, just not good enough. Losing that game in the last seconds, one like that in Baltimore, and then to come and lose this one after rallying back to take the lead in a circumstance typically where you got to go two possessions that normally don't really happen like that.
And that was one of the things that really impressed me, like the grit, the determination, and the decision to go for two. Dan Campbell said it was easy to make that decision. He would rather win the game in overtime than send it, or win the game in regulation rather than send it to overtime. You get the score and you're done with it. It gives you the best chance to win the game. But my football conscience has to have his little say in here as well.
Well, I tell you, one, that definitely is going to be getting an award for one that's not scared to go for two or, do the fourth and whatever the distance is. I think, the one that actually shows the players, and really players really get excited when the head coach will believe in them that much that he'll take that risk. And really, when you're competing at this level, I mean, you're going against the best talent in the world, and you always want to put your test against the best. It don't matter if you're playing a scrub, so anytime that you can line up with another peer eye to eye and say, my will is tougher than yours, and you succeed, that doesn't do anything but build character for the team, but it also builds a way of winning.
It really does. And like, we believe in the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell believes in his guys, and the wins are going to come eventually. Like, when you're in these types of games where it's this close, the game against the Ravens, literally a game of inches, the game against the Vikings, another game of inches. At some point, Dan Campbell says, we're going to be on the other side of this. We are going to be getting the W's instead of the last second losses. It will bounce your way eventually, hopefully sooner than later. But the fight that we've seen, it has been so nice. And they did strike first too. They get the field goal up 3-0 on the Minnesota Vikings. And you've been there in Minnesota on both sides. What does that do to a crowd like the Minnesota Vikings had there when they go down 3-0 right at the start?
Well, I tell you what, there in Minnesota, their crowd is going to always be a factor. And for the Lions to go in and again, hostile territory, take it down first series, put a nice little series together and walk away with three, that was a big plus. And that's something to build on every week, too. Anytime that you can do that, like I said, last week, at the first of a game and then the first of that third quarter, if you can strike and get 3-yard touchdown, that's a great thing. And it actually shows that your team came in, hot, ready to go.
Yeah, you've talked about that quite often, just building the momentum that way. So Vikings march down the field. They tie it 3-3. And then the second drive for the Lions, it ends after a Penei Sewell. He's beat on back-to-back sacks by Everson Griffin. Goff fumbles on the second one, and it's the Vikings ball. So Dan Campbell says they might be getting Taylor Decker back this week. Does that shake things up a little bit, or are we still just letting the rookie take his lumps?
Well, I tell you what, though, just to be honest with you, Griffin is no slouch. I mean, he's one of the top tier defensive ends in the game. I mean, and he's been that for some years. So, one, he getting baptized by a seasoned veteran like that, it definitely allows him to understand the standard and what level he has to compete at. I think, though, he was really, overmatched from the skill set standpoint. And, this is a young guy. This guy's 20 years old. I mean, he's, truly a young guy going against a guy that has man strength. And man strength really come in at about 26 years old. And that's where you don't really have to lift weights. What you have is going to be, good enough. But I would say this. If they get Decker back, it's definitely going to help solidify the line, because the play on the line itself, kind of had, Golf Jarrett real, I ain't going to say he had antsy feet, but if you look at a lot of his throws, all his feet, his position of his feet were always horizontal. Whereas you got to step toward where you're throwing, and he didn't get a lot of chances to do that because they kept him moving out of the pocket. Even if they wasn't hitting, they actually was throwing off the timing. And that was one of those things I said last week, was that, that the secondary would have to give the defensive line enough time to get to him and cover, which they I think Aaron had them in the right defense. I think that the cornerbacks actually didn't play the scheme right. And this is what I mean. On one play, which we'll talk about the secondary later. I know we was just talking about the line, but more
There's a lot to
importantly,
talk about.
yeah, but more importantly, Sewell definitely, was overmatched.
Yeah, and he's so young, youngest player in the NFL. Everson Griffin, he has that wily veteran know how to do it. He's got the spin moves, he's got the chops, very impressive. And like we talked about too, we had the new center Evan Brown this week stepping in for Frank Ragnow. That probably played a lot of into why Goff couldn't really step up, get his feet facing forward, because he just didn't. He didn't feel right. Would be
Yeah.
something that would that I don't know. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and you got to adapt as things go. So Vikings get the ball back, kick a field goal up 6-3, and then they stall and they punt after 5 plays. The Lions do. Vikings go on an 8-play, 73-yard drive. Justin Jefferson puts up over half of the yards there, catches 2 balls for 36. He looked pretty uncoverable throughout the game. And then they cap it off with an Alexander Madison 15-yard catch and run from Kirk Cousins. And outside of this, I will say it was a lot of bend but don't break. Like that drive, they got beat pretty badly, but they were giving up yards and then holding them in the red zone outside of this. So that was nice, at least.
Yeah, but I think one of the things is you try to not put yourself in that position whereas you have to play that red zone defense. One of the things that I was just saying when we were talking about Griffin and Sewell and the combination play with the secondary, you had situations where it looked like it was a man zone where you come in, but the corners were, in their disguise too long. So when they would actually be coming back to get in front of Jefferson, the ball would be hiking, and that wouldn't create the disruption of the route. And it was like he was getting free releases. On one play, if you remember, it was a third and I guess a decent distance, and he just made an inside release just straight across the field. And when he made that up, I mean, the cornerback or no one disrupted anything, and it wasn't even a timing route. It was just he ran across the field because he had a free release. And I believe that if they would have had a little bit more cover, the defensive line was playing pretty good ball. Actually, they were getting some pressure on Cousins, so he wasn't sitting back there like he was at the beach. He was having to move around as well. So, but it was just that hair or disruption in the routes that was needed so that they could get to him.
Yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship like you keep talking about. You can't have good coverage without a good pass rush. You can't rush the passer when you let a guy have a free release like that. And Justin Jefferson, don't get me wrong, he is special. Like he is
Yes, sir.
special talent. He just moves so well. And it's just, I would love for the Lions to get a receiver of that caliber. Although the receiver core takes a hit here. Goff hits Quintez Cephas, hits him on a slant. He beats Patrick Peterson for 21 yards, and then he broke his collarbone. Does not return. Might not return for the rest of the season, which is just that's tough. So like, we'll talk about the rest of the game later. But for Cephas, how do you come back from that? Where it's you want to play this year, but you might not be able to. Like, describe that process.
Well, anytime that you have an injury, you have to really be diligent in understanding the injury. I would tell you that sometimes, in the game of football, we put playing over pain. It's like you play with pain and things like that. But now there is, a little bit more intelligence and knowledge about how to approach injuries. Specifically, a collarbone, that's a stress point, and he's a receiver. So you got DBs that will be jamming him in his collarbone. When he hit the ground, he'll be falling and getting the compression of the ground on the collarbone. So it's going to be real tough, I think, for him to get back. Now, if it's, what they would say as a bruise or where you could see that it didn't actually break all the way through, he may be able to come back, but he's going to definitely labor with some pain from the beginning. But again, you know, the mind and the body and adrenaline, you can do some phenomenal things. But I do believe that if he comes back too soon, then he'll definitely extend how long his recovery will be.
And it really does feel like the coaches are being sensitive to that. Like you've seen with Taylor Decker, it's a broken finger. He could have come back a little bit earlier if they pushed him, but they're letting these players take their time to heal properly. It really shows like a trust between the coaching staff. Oh, between the coaching staff and the players as well, that, hey, we're not going to put you in a bad situation. So that's good to hear. I hope that Cephas does come back well, comes back healthy. And because of that beautiful catch, though, the Lions are able to kick a 52-yard field goal, send it to half down 13-6. And that you've got to feel pretty good go taking it to the Vikings. You're 7-point underdogs. You're still in it. You're only down by one score. That's got to feel
Yeah.
pretty good.
Hey, well, they held 13-6, like I said, until the fourth quarter, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. It was 13-6, same score. So they were in the whole position, always in position to actually score and win the game.
Yeah.
And that also says something too about the defense, how well they played, because they kept that offense under 21 points. And like I said last week, that would be the challenge. And if they could do it, it was going to give them a chance to win. And it did that.
It really did. And it feels like something was said at halftime, got the guys
Yeah.
juiced up, because the Vikings got the ball first. They go 3 and out. Lions just completely shut them down on that first drive. They get the ball back. TJ Hawkinson gets his second reception of the game. And that's an issue that I do have, that it was
Yeah.
the first drive of the second half, 14-yard catch, and he ends his day with 2 grabs for 22 yards. Like that, he's your best player. That can't happen.
Yeah, well, the expectation was to definitely try to see if they could get him involved in the game. I mean, like you said, he's one of the better players. But I will tell you that, sometimes when you look at a system and you see how a quarterback is actually favoring certain receivers, it's a timing, it's some confidence. I think, between, what's his name, Hodge
And St. Brown.
and St. Brown. To me, those are the two receivers that it seemed like, Jared was looking to. It's St. Brown being the big play and Hodge for the money, meaning the needed catch, the possession receptions. That seemed kind of how it looked like he was leaning in the game. And it could have been coverage, because Minnesota does have good linebackers. So keeping the tight end covered could have been part of the scheme as well. But I do believe that those two other guys, and to be honest about just the overall, when you look at the offense itself, when Swift is in the game, the offense moves more efficient, and it's potentially a more efficient and dangerous offense. And here's when Williams is in the game, you kind of play him to the run, strong run. But when Swift is in the game, you got that double issue. He can run and he can get out in space, and he's a good receiver. So really, it's 3 things. So when the Lions are using Swift and allowing him to really get the rhythm, it seems like the offense moves faster, the line about better, and then that goes also to the style of running backs. Some running backs can hit a hole downhill. Some running backs that come and then they'll glide in the hole. Some running backs, they dip in the hole. Some running backs run, high, but they're down low enough. So in style, it looks like, Swift runs better behind that blocking scheme. That's to me.
I am a avid DeAndre Swift fan, so you're not going to hear me argue with you in the slightest. He just rips off those little 15-yard runs, those little 15-yard catches, and just puts up play after play, gets you the first down. Big DeAndre Swift fan. Back to the game though. that drive after Hawkinson gets the ball, gets a second reception, Goff ends the drive with a really bad interception right into the hands of Eric Kendricks. They respond well, though. They hold the Vikings to 3-and-out. They punt after the interception. So describe the psychology of that. Like, you have thrown an interception, but your defense came up and stepped up big, got you the ball back. What's going through your head now as the Lions still down 13-6?
Well, because you are in hostile territory, anytime that you have a big play or a turnover, you're gonna, get the crowd in it. So for the Lions to come back and respond on defense and really hold that point, that was real good, because at that point, the momentum, the energy, and everything that is given that other team can really, get things running downhill for you. But the Lions did respond, and I think that was a good situation that you kind of seen how your defense would respond. So I think that was a good situation, not the interception, but what the defense did after.
And even when things go wrong, you can still build off of that. I'm sure that was a big team building stand. Lions on the next drive, they run 6 plays. They don't get a whole lot of ground. They punt it back. And then the Vikings first play of the drive, 48-yard run by Alexander Madison. And this is what I mean with the bend but don't break kind of mindset they've had, because the next play, Alexander Anzalone, he picks off Kirk Cousins, returns the favor, another defensive play.
Yeah. Yep. That was a big play. That deflection itself and he getting to the ball was definitely a big play. But I will tell you now, the guy, Madison and Jefferson, those guys are solid players. But the guy, Madison, in the NFL, matter of fact, in all football, and this is one thing that, fans and particularly, running backs, DBs, linebackers don't want to hear, is that they're a dime a dozen. And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of good running backs that's sitting on the sideline. Madison is an example. That kid right there, he can play football. And he was running that ball with some real authority, and it wasn't like he was new to it. So I looked at, how he played, and I was like, man, the guy cooked. If he was there, I wonder what he would have done and how the defense would respond, because sometimes you play your defense different depending on whether or not a running back can break one from 60. Some running backs are good in possession, but once they get past 40 to 60 yards, they don't have the long haul to go the distance. So defenses won't worry about, not running them down, and they'll cheat the safety up. But if you get someone that can go the distance from anywhere on the field, then you play a little different. So I believe that the defense itself, though, because of having some of those big plays with Jefferson and Madison, they held their composure after giving up those big plays. Because all of them was some I would say momentum type plays too that could again got the game out of hand, could have had the emotions high enough, whereas they could have used that to rally.
Yeah, and like you said, Alexander Madison, 153 yards from the backup running back. Like that can be a absolute dagger to the heart of your defense, especially when Justin Jefferson, he goes for 124 yards too. But it doesn't matter. They just keep holding the Vikings to field goals. They punt back and forth with each other. Lions or Vikings put together a nice drive, get a field goal, but again, hold them to a field goal. And then that's where the Lions go for it, 4th and 15 on their own 43, down 16-6, just 3 minutes left. They fail, but the Vikings miss their field goal. So it ends up being the right decision in the end. And Dan Campbell talked about it like after the game, just in the moment, those decisions, they're tough, but you've got to put your team in the best situation to win.
Yeah. Those are tough decisions, and the 4th down at that distance and stuff, that would be a tough one for me to pull. Not because I don't have the guts. It's just that, typically you're not going to do that.
How most teams probably don't have like 1 or 2 plays on the 4th and 15 play call sheet, I imagine.
Well, I mean, there are, those, last minute, drills that, when you going in for a win, yeah, there are definitely plays like that are designed to get big gains, but you know, defenses are going to play far enough back, whereas they're not going to try to give up the six. So they'll try to keep you in front of, in other words, like when the DBs, are covering, long as the receivers are running in front of them, they're fine. They'll make the tackle. So, it's just a matter of how, the way the coaches had coached our DBs is like if they're on a 4th and 7 or 4th and 9, 4th and 12, they'll tell that secondary, you stand on that 9 on the 12th yard line, and you come downhill and you stop everything short of that. So that's kind of what's going on in that situation from a defensive standpoint. But it was a big deal. He got some big chips. Let me say it that way.
Yeah, some big stones on Dan Campbell. Vikings miss their field goal, and the Lions get it back at the 39-yard line. An 18-yard pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like you said, he's coming in clutch. He's really developing to a receiver they can trust. Then it's a 21-yard catch and run from our guy, DeAndre Swift. Just he continues to make plays when they need him most. Lions get to the 22, kick the field goal, go down 16-9. Vikings get the ball back, and that's when this bend but don't break defense comes in clutch. Alexander Madison, he takes the ball. They think they're going to kill some time, run out the clock. We've just got 2.5 minutes left. Fumble. Jalen Reeves-Maybin gets the takeaway and the recovery. And Dan Campbell gave him all the credit after the game for that. Lions get the ball back at the Vikings 20. And they end up scoring on it. It was just beautiful. 10 yards again to Amon-Ra St. Brown. 7-yard touchdown run for DeAndre Swift. They go up 16-15. And they go down 16-15. Rather than play for the tie, Dan Campbell keeps the offense on the field. They go for 2, and it works. Kaderil Hodge comes away to put them up 17-16 in the back of the end zone. And just these young receivers, Kaderil Hodge, he's bounced around the league. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the 4th-round pick. Like, you have to love these young guys coming up when you need them most.
Yeah, I would say that again. They played a game and they kept it where they had a chance to win and to be there at the end. Those situations will start going their way, and I wouldn't be discouraged as if I'm a 0-5 team, like, and I'm truly at the bottom of the barrel, when we know that we can compete and play against, some good teams. Just look, Minnesota and Baltimore, to go down the way that it is. Both of those teams are expected to be in the playoff hunt,
Yeah. And even with the last-second field goal against both of them, they still were held to 19 points, both the Vikings and the Ravens. Those are quality offenses, my friend. That is, we don't like talking about the moral victories, but it is a moral victory. Like, it is something you have to hang your hat on and just build off of that. And unfortunately, we got to talk about that last drive. Adam Thielen rips off a 21-yard catch. Next play, rips off a 19-yard catch. Vikings get to the 36. Greg Joseph, 54-yard field goal to lose the game, 19-17. What's the message going to be after a heartbreaking loss like this? Like, what's the conversation heading into next week?
I think, coach has to go in and keep his guys, steady, keep their belief in the system. I do believe that, after the first half, Aaron showed that he could make those type of adjustments because they shut the piece down with Jefferson, because in that second quarter kind of got away. So they made a great midstream adjustment during halftime by shutting him down. And then, again, if, Swift, to me, if he's running the ball and using Williams as, the person that's giving him a breather, I would give him a steady dose of Swift. I'm handing it to him, and I'm passing it to him out the back. You know, Swift is similar to Marshall Faulk. You know,
Oh,
yeah, he is. He doesn't have the running style as Marshall, but he has the game that Marshall has. Whereas he's tough, he can get out in the route, catch the ball, and we clearly see that he can run the ball. You know, so to me, Swift is to me the horse I would ride right now.
that's the highest of praise. Marshall Falk, probably the best dual threat running back in terms of receiving and running the football. I can't say I disagree though. DeAndre Swift is dynamic. Get the ball in that man's hands, and let him make a play. So I got to ask you this then. Is he Jerry's baller of the weekend, DeAndre Swift?
Well, actually, my baller of the week is I forget the kid's name, number 21, not
Tracy
we
Tracy
Tracy
Walker.
yeah, Tracy Walker. I think that the safeties played real well, and specifically Tracy. Tracy showed up and made a lot of good plays, and they were solid plays, and a lot of them were those plays that was getting them off the field. And that's when you want your best players to make plays, is when they need to get off the field. Players make plays, so he would definitely be my player of the game.
And that really does speak to the safety position versus the running back position. Like safeties, it's a good thing when you don't get noticed, because it means you're just making steady plays. You're not getting beat. Whereas the running back, you have to get noticed. You have to be making those
Yeah.
flat running back flash over substance, safety substance over flash.
But hey, but let me tell you, but that other award, that that peanut butter and jelly.
J and J, Jack and Jerry go together like PB and J. So what's the PB and J play of the day?
When Swift ran over that guy. That was football right there. Now, let me tell you something. Swift is fast enough where he could elude defenders, right? He actually seen him and took it to him. And when he ran, that truly to me gave the Lions that burst, because after that, that's when they turned it on. It's like he set the tempo just with that run, because that was a hell of a run.
Hell of a run by a hell of a player. And
Yes, sir.
my pick for play of the day is going to be that 2-point conversion catch by Cavanagh Hodge, just because the impact of it, the young receiver stepping up in a big way. I have to make sure he gets his hat tip as well. So going forward, talked about DeAndre Swift, 104 yards and a touchdown on the day. Receivers, though, Quintez Cephas, he's out. Tyrell Williams, his status is up in the air. We don't know. Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of looks like the new Cooper Kupp for Jared Goff, if I'm being honest. And then we've got Cavanagh Hodge as well. So what do we need this offense to build on going forward? What should be the focus outside of DeAndre Swift? Because it can't be all Swift, as much as we would like it to be that.
Well, we definitely got to get the tight end, because I believe the tight end gets, a different element of routes involved. I believe, you get Williams back, but, the St. Brown and Hodge, I think are some solid receivers. And I would really be focused on trying to get Hodge the ball and stretching the field with St. Brown. Now, when it comes to the tight end, I think it's really about how creative they are in the play calling. One of the things I did like with what they did, I seen them run a lot of trips. They went, and when they went into the trips and they was throwing that outside screen with the receivers leading downfield, that was a great play. But that was the type of creativity I feel that they're going to have to put in to get the tight end in the game, find a way to get him in the game so that you can, isolate that linebacker and keep him from drifting and floating around. So I think that's one of the key things that they're going to have to do. And of course, if the back is running the ball, that also opens it up as well.
There's a lot of ways to start opening up this offense, especially as we see St. Brown and Hodge step up a little bit more. That's only going to create space for TJ over the middle. Run a little play action to DeAndre Swift and just pop it in over the linebackers there. Just that's the stuff I want to see from TJ Hawkinson. Let the man run with the ball in his hands, get him in space, just like DeAndre Swift does. So now it's time for the defense and the guys up front. They continue to play really well. Like Charles Harris steps in with when Aquara goes down with the Achilles tear. 4 pressures from him. He gets a sack as well. Trey Flowers, he's being banged up. He has a sack and 2 pressures. The big man, Aleem McNeil, he started bringing the heat on Kirk Cousins too. Nick Williams too. 4 tackles from him as well on the defensive line. These young guns are really stepping up. I do want to see a little bit more from Michael Brockers, though. He doesn't end up with any tackles on the day and just the 1 pressure as well.
Yeah, well, again, sometimes, the stats don't always tell the story. When I was playing nose guard, my chief and primary job first was to keep the linemen off of the linebackers. And it was their responsibility to make the tackles. So if I was caught up in making tackles and looking at the number, you would think I had a bad game. But in some cases, I've had great games, and I might have had 1 or 2 tackles. So that's not going to always tell the story. But I will say that McNeil, I watched him quite a bit in this game, and I think he got a lot of potential. And I watched that he was, relentless on his pass rushing too. So I think that, the Lions definitely has some young guys that can get after it. And again, like I said last week, on most teams, the defensive line actually sets the tempo and the identity of the team. And the Lions, if they're going to turn that corner, that defensive line is going to be what pushes them forward. And they have a solid line when everybody's there. But right now, like I said last week, the defensive line is going to have to carry.
And it's that continuity that we need to see them continue to build. Like Trey Flowers, once he starts playing with the rookie, they start working on those stunts and such. Good things are coming for the Detroit Lions on defense. And hopefully that leads to better performance from the secondary. That's kind of where they got killed at times. Amani Oruwariye, he has targeted 6 times, gives up 5 receptions for 101 yards. AJ Parker, the slot corner, he gives up all 7 targets for 60 yards. Rookie out of Arkansas, he ends up drawing the start. We had talked last week about CJ Moore. Does he draw another start or do they move to someone else? They go with Jerry Jacobs, the rookie, over the second-year player. And Jacobs has an all right day, 2 receptions for 35 yards, but I want to see some more of what you were saying, where it's, keep everything in front of you and make those hard tackles.
Yeah, well, again, I think the secondary played good, a lot better in the second half. But there are some technical things that I'm sure that Aaron is going to correct, because if I could see it on television when they're breaking down the film again, and specifically number 24. I don't want to chop up his name. Say his name for me again. Oh,
Amani Oruwariye. Just call him AO if you can't remember. It's all right.
AO. All right. Well, AO has sometimes, when guys are good players, they get overconfident in their technique. And because he was dealing with a guy that was a great player like Jefferson, he should have been more technique focused than getting into the battle with him. If you ever watch Deion Sanders on any film, I don't care who it is, when he line up in front of that man, he's always broke down with his hips closed. He's not standing up. He's not walking toward the man, and then the play starts. When that play starts, Deion is broke down in front of him. And those guys are taking that I'm a pro type attitude, and instead of going and line up in front of the guy, so when the ball is snapped, he can use his technique, they're standing straight up, and then they're having to then drop their hips to get into the back pedal. All that's wasted motion, And if you're gonna disguise the blitz, or you want to, bluff the blitz, there's way of doing. But always make sure you can get back to the leverage point that you need to have on that receiver. And I think that's one of the key things that they're gonna have to do. Stop trying to be a pro and be a pro. You know.
That's a very good point. And we saw it for years, like Deion Sanders versus this man, Michael Irvin. Like even on those snaps, just down low, not taking himself too seriously. It's all about the technique. So
Yeah.
hopefully, yeah, we can see a little bit of that coming in. AO, he had 2 picks in back-to-back games too. So, maybe he's riding a little bit high. You get confident, you get a little sloppy at times. It can happen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll just tell you about a pick. I actually got a pick against the Jacksonville Jaguars and scored a touchdown on it and stuff. So even the fat boys can get a pick.
We're gonna have to look that up and get incorporated in the video package or something like that. I gotta go look that up after this. How many yards were you running there, Jerry?
66 yards. At the time, they said it was the actually longest interception run by a guy over 300 pounds. That's what they told me during the time. I thought that I figured it was just one of those fat jokes. They definitely was teasing me about the oxygen after.
Oh, that's just cruel. No, I think that's just straight impressive. Probably delivering a couple stiff arms on the way to the end zone. Got to start seeing those plays from the defensive line here.
Hey, well, actually, I had a pretty nice escort and stuff. Pat Swilling and a couple of other guys, Russell Maryland, they were escorting me. They all were asking me for the ball. And I'm like, man, you block. I'm going to run this one in my mind. Like, no, do you know what it is for a nose guard to get an interception? That is the rarity of rares,
Yeah. And then to get the touchdown to cap it off, you can't beat it. Jerry Ball setting history.
Hey, there you go.
Well, we'll make sure that we get that video package included and start showing those highlights going forward. But wrapping things up here from the Vikings game, any final big thoughts on your former team, the Detroit Lions, versus your former team, the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, they got to play them again, So
at home too.
Yeah, and I think if they can take from it, it's going to give them the confidence of knowing that they went into their house and had a chance to walk out of there with a win, and that should give them a lot of confidence and stuff. Hopefully, by that time, the offensive line is back and they've gotten that continuity and stuff, and they're rolling. I think the team is going to move forward in a good way. They just got to keep swinging the axe. And the other thing that's good about playing through these injury aspects is so early that you're getting a chance to also see some of these backups and putting them in a situation that whether or not they're going to be ready to play if something happened later on and we make it in the playoffs.
And speaking to that, getting healthy and building towards something, getting the full unit at strength. Taylor Decker, we talked about it, does have a chance to return from the broken finger. We'll see on Wednesday. We'll talk about it later in this week, but tentatively, they're going to keep him at left tackle. But we will be previewing that on Thursday with the Believe in Lions preview versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And one final note, defensive line getting stronger too. Preseason darling Kevin Strong is back this week as well. Did you watch much Kevin Strong this preseason?
Yeah, he showed some flashes that he can be definitely a dominant player and stuff. It'll be good to have him back and see what he can put in the mix as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're building something good. We've got good things going for the Lions. We're getting healthy. The young players are stepping up. So I'm excited to see where we can go from this. So before we head out, just a reminder that we are brought to you by betonline.ag. But if we have no further thoughts, Jerry, where can the people find you? And what do you got going on in the background?
Hey, I got my YouTube channel that we're launching this month, and you can find me on Jerry Reckin Ball on Instagram and Jerry Ball 93 on Twitter and Facebook.
Make sure you check out Jerry on all of the socials. You can find me everywhere at Cavanagh87. And without further ado, it's time to break it down. You ready, Jerry?
Yes, sir. 1, 2, 3. We
We
believe.
believe. We're out.